Peart was born on the 12th of September 1952 to Glenn and Betty Peart, and lived his early years on his family's farm in Hagersville, Ontario, on the outskirts of Hamilton. At this time, his father became parts manager for Dalziel Equipment, an international harvester farm machinery dealer. In 1956, the family moved to the Port Dalhousie area of the town. Peart attended Gracefield School and later Lakeport Secondary School, and described his childhood as happy. He stated he experienced a warm family life. By early adolescence, he became interested in music and acquired a transistor radio, which he would use to tune into popular music stations broadcasting from Toronto, Hamilton, Welland, and Buffalo. His first exposure to musical training came in the form of piano lessons, which he later said in his instructional video, "A work in progress did not have much impact on him." He had a penchant for drumming on various objects around the house with a pair of chopsticks. So for his 13th birthday, his parents bought him a pair of drumsticks, a practice drum, and some lessons with the promise that if he stuck with it for a year, they would buy him a kit. At 18 years old, after struggling to achieve success as a drummer in Canada, Peart traveled to London, England, hoping to further his career as a professional musician. Despite playing in several bands and picking up occasional session work, he was forced to support himself by selling jewelry at a shop called The Great Frog on Carnaby Street. While in London, he came across the writings of novelist and philosopher Ayn Rand. Rand's writings became a significant early philosophical influence on Peart, as he found many of her writings on individualism and objectivism inspiring. References to Rand's philosophy can be found in his early lyrics, most notably Anthem from 1975, Fly By Night, and 2112 from 1976 to 112. After 18 months, Peart became disillusioned by his lack of progress in the music business. He placed his aspiration of becoming a professional musician on hold and returned to Canada. Upon returning to St. Catharines, he worked for his father, selling tractor parts at Dalziel Equipment. After returning to Canada, Peart was recruited to play drums for a St. Catharines band known as Hush, who played on the Southern Ontario bar circuit. Soon after, a mutual acquaintance convinced Peart to audition for the Toronto-based band Rush, which needed a replacement for its original drummer John Rutsey. Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson oversaw the audition. His future bandmates describe his arrival that day as somewhat humorous, as he arrived in shorts driving a battered old Ford Pinto with his drums stored in trash cans. Peart felt the entire audition was a complete disaster, while Lee and Peart hit it off on a personal level. Lifeson had a less favorable impression of Peart. After some discussion between Lee and Lifeson, Peart officially joined the band on July 1974, 2 weeks before the group's first U.S. tour. Peart procured a silver Slingerland kit, which he played at his first gig with the band, opening for Uriah Heep and Manfred Mann's Earth Band in front of over 11,000 people at the Civic Arena in Pittsburgh on August 1974. Peart soon settled into his new position, also becoming the band's primary lyricist. Before joining Rush, he had written a few songs, but with the other members largely uninterested in writing lyrics. Peart's previously underutilized writing became as noticed as his musicianship. The band were working hard to establish themselves as a recording act, and Peart, along with the rest of the band, began to undertake extensive touring. His first recording with the band, 1975 Fly By Night, was fairly successful, winning the Juno Award for Most Promising New Act, but the follow-up, Caress of Steel, for which the band had high hopes, was greeted with hostility by both fans and critics. In response to this negative reception, most of which was aimed at the B-side spanning epic The Fountain of Lamneth, Peart responded by penning 2112 on their next album of the same name in 1976. The album, despite record company indifference, became their breakthrough and gained a following in the United States. The supporting tour culminated in a 3-night stand at Massey Hall in Toronto, a venue Peart had dreamed of playing in his days on the Southern Ontario bar circuit, and where he was introduced as the Professor on the drum kit by Lee. Peart returned to England for Rush's Northern European tour, and the band stayed in the United Kingdom to record the next album, 1977, A Farewell to Kings, in Rockfield Studios in Wales. They returned to Rockfield to record the follow-up Hemispheres in 1978, which they wrote entirely in the studio. The recording of 5 studio albums in 4 years, coupled with as many as 300 gigs a year, convinced the band to take a different approach thereafter. Peart has described his time in the band up to this point as a dark tunnel. Playing Style Reinvention. In 1991, Peart was invited by Kathy Rich to play at the Buddy Rich Memorial Scholarship Concert in New York City. Peart accepted and performed for the first time with the Buddy Rich Big Band. Peart remarked that he had little time to rehearse, and noted that he was embarrassed to find the band played a different arrangement of the song than the one he had learned. Feeling that his performance left much to be desired, Peart produced and played on 2 Buddy Rich tribute albums titled Burning for Buddy, a tribute to the music of Buddy Rich in 1994 and 1997, in order to regain his aplomb. While producing the first Buddy Rich tribute album, Peart was struck by the tremendous improvement in ex-Journey drummer Steve Smith's playing, and asked him his secret. Smith responded he had been studying with drum teacher Freddie Gruber. In short, Peart died from glioblastoma, an aggressive form of brain cancer, on January 2020 in Santa Monica, California. He had been diagnosed 3.5 years earlier, and the illness was a closely guarded secret in Peart's inner circle until his death. His family made the announcement on January 10th.